If you're going to rebuild that part of the world in terms of stability, you have to do it with the cultures and the minorities that are there. Otherwise, it's just going to cause those another set of tensions, and you're going to have the failed state for a lot longer. If you have that failed state in the middle of a troubled region, then this is just going to carry on going for years and years.
Well, the Syrian government has fallen to rebel forces. President Bashar al-Assad appears to have fled Damascus. He's flying somewhere. The speculation his family might be in Russia. We just don't know. And in fact, there's a lot we just don't know about the story because it is developing all the time. The Rebel Alliance group has announced this morning they had freed Damascus following a lightning offensive through Syria, and even things what we're reading from 24 hours ago seem to be very, very out of date, Paul, because this is just going so quickly, isn't it? What do you think, what is your evaluation of what has happened and what you think happens next?
Yeah, it's obviously happened so quickly over the last couple of weeks. Now, is it because Russia have been too stretched with what's going on in Ukraine and elsewhere? Is it that they and Iran have sort of decided that Bashar al-Assad is not worth protecting anymore? These are questions that I think, well, we might not ever know, but we've got to find out now. There's so many questions. So the group that are coming in, when we were supporting them against the horrendous alleged war crimes of Assad before, there was a bit of an unholy alliance. We've got to check that the minority, especially the Christian minority of Syria, are protected, as al-Jalani, the leader, was talking about just a few weeks ago before he knew the speed of what was happening ahead of him.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the coalition seems to have reiterated that in the statement they've put out in the last hour or so, saying they want all cultures and backgrounds of people to be protected. I mean, let's see if that actually happens, but warm words anyway in that statement.
Yes. Oh, no, absolutely. Exactly. Because I think that's really crucial to us. If you're going to rebuild that part of the world in terms of stability, you have to do it with the cultures and the minorities that are there. Otherwise, it's just going to cause those another set of tensions, and you're going to have the failed state for a lot longer. If you have that failed state in the middle of a troubled region, then this is just going to carry on going for years and years. But let's see what the detail comes over the next few hours and days.
Luciana, the Prime Minister here in the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, is going out sort of to the region. He's going to the United Arab Emirates. He's going to Saudi Arabia. Clearly, this will be the dominant issue that he talks about. I just wonder how you think the international community can support Syria at this really febrile time.
I mean, obviously, first and foremost, the responsibility of the international community is to do everything possible to support the civilian population of Syria, which is experiencing extraordinary inflation, is struggling to be able to put food on the table, running out of essential supplies. We've already seen the most significant displacement of vulnerable people from that country over the course of the past couple of decades, and to ensure that humanitarian aid is made available to people so they're not actually starving, which seems to be edging towards the case so far already.
And certainly after 50 years of autocratic rule, you must have many concerns, as we all do, of course, Luciana, about those civilians and about what happens next for them, especially given the huge level of instability.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we know already how many millions of people have been displaced from Syria so far, and certainly hearing some stories that have evolved and have emerged in the press over the last 24, 48 hours, people who can't even use their real names, that don't even live in Syria, that are worried for the well-being of their family that are left behind. Some serious concerns about families that are already disconnected and worries about where they can be going. Currently, journeys that would currently take around 4 hours within Syria are being known to take over 24 hours. Cost of a journey normally costing $4. Now in the region of $600. People not being able to travel. So some very serious concerns about what happens to the population of the people that live in Syria, and that's certainly, I hope, will be at the forefront of the minds of both leaders in the region and Western leaders too. And I'm sure that will dominate the conversation that Keir Starmer has as Prime Minister when he goes over to the region shortly.
Paul, I wonder what you think the message should be from Keir Starmer. Certainly we're hearing a lot from the region. We're getting detail every minute, really. There's more coming out. We're seeing the celebrations that have happened there. We've seen the coalition declaring a national holiday. It's saying that people should be protecting the property and businesses within Syria because, as they're saying, it belongs to the people rather than what they say is the murderous Assad regime. I just wonder as well, within that, we're seeing the Iranian embassy, for example, being stormed. This is clearly a very, very volatile situation.
Oh, hugely volatile, and I suspect it will be for some time. So I think Sakir needs to go there and talk about the minorities that we were just mentioning. Talk about the need to protect civilians that Luciana just talked about, because that's how you start to build the state up again. Now, they don't need to be. There's always an argument about whether a leader or a party or a country is pro-West, anti-West. This isn't about taking that kind of side because it's a very different culture. What they need to understand, and hopefully they will accept, is that we are prepared to work for them, with them, in terms of helping rebuild the country, helping stabilize that area, because there are millions of people that have been displaced. There's been 370,000, I think it is, people displaced just in the last few weeks in this latest advance. And I remember the debates we had in the early days of when I was an MP, when we were talking about whether we bring 20,000 Syrians to the UK or whether we, for the same cost, the same resource, support 800,000 Syrians around the border. There are both people camps around the borders of Syria, and there are people in other countries who may want to, and I suspect will want to return to help rebuild their country and help build recapture their old lives.
Luciana, I wonder what you think this means for the wider region. We've seen so many interconnected conflicts in the Middle East recently, not least in regard to Gaza, Israel, what Hamas terrorists have been doing, what Hezbollah terrorists have been doing. We know that Iran will have been dealt a blow by the fall of the Assad regime. We know that Russia will have been dealt a blow. What is your sort of general view on the stability of the region and how this affects other players? Because it does seem to be very interconnected whilst also a domestic problem for Syria.
Well, I think in advance of what has been a very rapid evolution of events in Syria, we were already seeing significant instability in the region, largely aided and abetted by the support, actions and investment and resource from both Iran and Russia. So this is yet another front that opens up a particular challenge for countries in the West, and alongside the war in Russia and Ukraine, I think certainly will be at the top of the list of international concerns and discussions, and should be the concern of the global community in terms of what we do, because history tells us that instability in the region is not a good thing. And certainly we all have a role to play, not to directly get involved, but certainly can do everything possible, first and foremost, as I mentioned, on the humanitarian front. But a febrile Middle East does not serve the world well. And certainly, I'm very concerned at this moment in time. And while we've seen the country being taken over in Syria, it's not going to end here. There's certainly more that will occur over the coming weeks and months. It's something that everyone, I think, on the international stage needs to take very, very seriously.
We've been speaking to a number of experts over the last couple of hours of this programme. I've learned an awful lot about the situation, as I'm sure many listeners have as well. I just wonder, Paul, about this group HTS. Now, they are, of course, just part of the coalition, but they seem to be the dominant player within the coalition. There are lots of different splinter groups, some who were originally part of Al-Qaeda, then they split from Al-Qaeda, have actually fought against Al-Qaeda in the case of HTS. I just wonder, from all that you've seen and read and experienced in regard to the region, do you think that they are changed people since the days they were celebrating the hijackers of 9/11? Has enough happened? Has so much happened in the last nearly 25 years to actually say that this could bring some form of stability or even alliance for the West? I mean, that may well not be the question for today, but it will be a question soon enough.
I mean, look, it's the right question to ask. I'm no expert enough not enough to be able to determine whether they have truly changed. As you said earlier, they have been talking about dialing down on and reversing their position on supporting the hijackers of 9/11, talking about being anti-West. and as you say, fighting for and supporting Al Qaeda. But we've got to see whether that actually stays in true whilst they are in power as well. And you're right, they are part of a larger coalition, and it may be that that's that coalition. If that coalition is to remain, that's what helps keep them in that position, that more pragmatic position, rather than the doctrinal extreme position that they previously held. Because if they're going to keep that area stable, then I suspect that was the position that they're going to have to be, even if they want to revert to type. Hopefully, the coalition partners will keep them in that position.